I never thought I'd hear those words from my own daughter, words so sharp, so cold, that they cut deeper than anything I could imagine. That evening, the rain was pouring like it was trying to wash away the world, tapping against windows and making everything feel heavier, darker. And there she stood, Ava, my daughter, with her arms crossed, eyes steady, and a voice that held no hesitation, no warmth. "She deserved it, Mom. Don't act like you didn't know that." I froze. My heart stopped. My stomach sank. The words echoed in my mind. She wasn't talking about someone else. She was talking about me, the mother who had worked night shifts, who had stayed up with her when she was sick, who had tried her best to raise her with love, patience, and guidance, the mother who had always been there. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even speak. It felt as though the floor beneath me had vanished. The betrayal wasn't loud or violent. It was quiet, deliberate, and absolute. How could my child, the little girl who once ran into my arms after every scraped knee or failed test, look at me now with such coldness? How could she think that I deserved something bad? The house was silent except for the rain, and I realized then that nothing would ever be the same. Something had shifted, something deep and terrifying. I wanted to cry, to scream, to plead, but I held myself still, because even in that heartbreak, there was a spark of clarity. This was no ordinary rebellion. This was something calculated, something I needed to understand before it was too late. And then, just a week later, the knock came. 3 slow, deliberate knocks at the front door that would change everything. When Ava swung it open, her confident smirk vanished. Standing there were uniformed officers, and in that moment she realized too late that the world didn't bend to her anger. Before everything fell apart, I believed I had a good life. Not perfect, but good. A calm life I built piece by piece with patience, hard work, and love. My daughter Ava was my sunshine, my reason to keep going through long shifts, endless chores, and sleepless nights. She used to run into my arms after school, chattering non-stop about her day, her friends, her little triumphs and failures. I thought our bond was unbreakable. I thought my love would shield her from life's harsh edges. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, that bond began to crack. Small signs at first, ignored calls, eye rolls at things I said, a coldness that didn't belong to a teenager's mood swings. I blamed myself. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I wasn't there enough when she needed me. I thought perhaps I hadn't loved her loud enough. And then came the parties, the late nights, the friends I didn't know, the whispers behind my back. It escalated quickly. I'd return home exhausted from double shifts, only to be met with slammed doors, cold stares, and words I could barely believe came from her mouth. Then came the night of the study session, a so-called night of homework and quiet laughter. I came home early, hoping to catch her before something went wrong, but when I walked into the living room, the noise hit me. Music blaring, laughter louder than it should have been, the smell of spilled soda and burnt popcorn. I asked them to quiet down. Ava turned to me, her face glowing with something I didn't recognize. Defiance, pride, maybe even satisfaction. And she said it. "Mom, you act like a victim, but trust me, you deserve everything that's coming." Everyone laughed, as if my pain was some kind of entertainment. My heart sank, but amid the hurt, something clicked. She wasn't just being rebellious. This was deliberate. She was hiding something. And I realized, with a sinking feeling, that she thought I would never find out. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. I didn't even cry. I simply knew deep down that this was the beginning of a storm I had to weather, a storm that would test my patience, my love, and eventually my resolve to teach her a lesson she would never forget. It didn't take long for the truth to surface. A few days after that party, I received a call from my workplace. My boss's voice was tight, serious, almost hesitant, and the moment he said my name, my heart sank. "Lisa, HR received an anonymous complaint against you. Someone claims you've been mistreating patients and taking medication without authorization. I froze. Mistreating patients, stealing medication. That couldn't be real. I've spent over 2 decades caring for people, saving lives, dedicating every ounce of myself to my work. And yet, here it was. Printed evidence, screenshots, fabricated messages, a trail pointing directly to me. But the strangest, most chilling part was the digital footprint. It all traced back to our home Wi-Fi, my daughter's work. Ava, my own child, had tried to destroy my career, my reputation, the very thing I had worked so hard to protect. That night I confronted her. I expected denial, a lie, maybe even tears. But instead she looked at me with a calm I could hardly recognize and said, "Mom, stop pretending. You push people away. You pushed me away. I just balanced things out." Balance things out. Those words cut deeper than any scream or insult could. She believed hurting me was justified. She thought she was leveling some moral scale, unaware that she was tipping her own life into chaos. I realized then that her rebellion wasn't just teenage angst. It was malicious, calculated. She had found herself in a group of friends who glorified chaos and destruction, and she wanted to prove she could be powerful, that she could control outcomes. And I, the person she should have trusted most, had become her target. But she didn't know one thing: actions have consequences. Her lies, her manipulation, the setup she had built, it all had a trail. HR wasn't the only one who would notice irregularities. Cybercrime investigators could trace online activity, messages could be verified, and slowly, quietly, I began to see the opportunity. I didn't have to yell, I didn't have to punish her. She was already on a path that would expose her. All I had to do was step back and let the truth run its course. The real betrayal didn't come with a warning. It didn't arrive with anger or shouting. It came quietly, slipping into a room, the kind of moment that makes you question everything you thought you knew about someone you loved. It was a cold Thursday night. I had just returned home from another exhausting double shift. My body ached, my mind was foggy, but I was looking forward to the comfort of home, of family. What I found instead made my chest tighten with fear. Ava was in the kitchen with 2 friends, their laughter sharp and reckless. I asked what they were doing. She looked at me, that familiar smirk, but sharper, colder than I had ever seen. "Maybe if you lose your job, or maybe if something happens to the house, you'll finally understand what you put me through," she said. Her words were deliberate. They weren't random. They weren't teenage rebellion. They were a plan, a threat. My stomach dropped. She wasn't just angry. She was willing to manipulate reality to make me feel powerless. All to impress her friends. All to prove some twisted sense of strength. When I tried to reason with her, when I told her she needed help, she leaned back, eyes steady, voice unwavering. "You're the one who ruined my life. Everything that happens to you now, you deserve it." The words echoed in my mind long after they left her mouth. I felt disbelief, heartbreak, and a surge of something I hadn't felt in a long time: determination. I realized she had crossed a line. This wasn't rebellion, this was betrayal, and it was personal. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't retaliate. I stayed calm because I knew something she didn't. She had underestimated life. She had underestimated accountability. She had underestimated me. I watched her walk away that night, confident and unaware. But inside I began plotting. Not a reckless act, not a shouting match, but a quiet, deliberate course of justice. After that night, something inside me shifted. Not anger, not hatred, but a deep, steady realization that Ava needed to face the truth. She had crossed boundaries no mother ever expects her child to cross. And if I kept protecting her, if I kept absorbing every blow, she would never stop. She would never learn. So I chose a different approach. Silence. Not cold silence, not punishing silence, but the kind that speaks louder than words, the kind that lets reality do its work. The HR investigation at the hospital continued. They had traced the fabricated messages, the fake complaints, and the stolen login attempts. Everything pointed to someone using our home network. When the cybercrime officer asked me gently, "Do you know who might be involved?" I didn't cover for her. For the first time in my life, I didn't shield her from consequences. I simply said yes, and I gave them Ava's name. It tore me apart inside, but I knew this was the only way to save her from a darker path. Trying to ruin someone's career wasn't a prank. It was a crime. A crime she didn't understand the weight of. A crime she needed to be held accountable for before it was too late. The officers began digging deeper. They studied her online activity, her messages, her attempts to create chaos inside our home. They found the connection, the motive, the pattern of behavior. Every deceptive step she had taken was documented, time-stamped, and tied back to her. Meanwhile, Ava walked around the house with the same false confidence, convinced she had outsmarted everyone. She still snapped at me. She still rolled her eyes. She still spoke with that coldness that didn't belong in a daughter's voice. But I didn't argue. I didn't confront her. I didn't warn her, because her greatest lesson was coming, and she didn't even see it approaching. The evening was heavy, the kind of quiet that presses down on your chest. Ava was upstairs, laughing on the phone with one of her friends, completely unaware that her world was about to shift. I sat in the living room, holding the HR decision letter. My name cleared, my reputation intact, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of relief. Then came the knock, 3 slow, deliberate taps on the front door. Ava, confident and careless, rushed past me to answer it. But the moment the door swung open, her smirk faltered. Standing on our porch were uniformed officers, their expressions serious, calm but unyielding. "Are you Ava Turner?" one of them asked. Her nod was hesitant, barely perceptible. Her eyes darted back at me, searching for support, for protection. There was none. This time I was silent. This time I let reality speak louder than any argument, louder than any lecture. "We need to talk about the cyber harassment case and the false medical reports submitted under your mother's name," the officer continued. Ava's confident facade crumbled. Her phone slipped from her hand. Her knees wobbled. The friends she thought had made her untouchable were nowhere in sight. And for the first time, she saw what her actions had truly done. Not just to me, but to herself. Tears welled up, fear replacing arrogance. Her voice shook. "Mom, what's happening?"